Nacho Average Tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Nacho Average Tabletop. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess in general, the
Yeah.
whole point of it, I guess, was, or the whole thing we're conversing about is my 30th birthday 30-hour gaming marathon, which happened to also be the same time we just kind of combined it with doing this Nacho Average board game tournament that
Yes.
I've
The
had over the last. This is the fifth year.
fifth annual.
Yes. So we just ended up having it all together because we thought usually it's usually about at least a 10-hour day, if not more.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we thought, well, we'll do it Labor Day weekend. That way it gives us, started on Saturday, do the tournament Saturday, and then just kind of play what other games we want to on Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess first we'll probably just talk a little bit about the tournament.
Yep. Yep.
Ever since the second one, we've had themes for the third, fourth, and fifth one now.
Yep.
And this year's theme was Around the World. So it was games mainly based on
Locations and iconic
typically.
places. And,
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, and the past ones we've had are Dice Baby, where they've been dice-driven games, and Card Sharks, where they've been card-driven games. So yeah, this year was a little bit different because we didn't just have like a necessarily a specific thing.
Yeah, no like
that we
mechanic
did.
or anything like that that's tying them together. So it
Right.
opened it up and it constricted it because I feel like we do have fewer location-based games
Right.
than
Right.
dice or cards.
Right, because obviously with a tournament as well, if you're trying to get in a good number of games,
Yep.
and I think it's kind of ranged as we've done it over the years. I think it's been anywhere from like 7, 8 games to I think the first year we did like some crazy 13 games or
yeah,
something in a
yep.
day. And yeah, so then everyone plays each game and kind of how we do it. If you haven't watched one of these, I think we recapped last year, so you can check out that one as well. I can link it below.
Yep.
So for these, we usually will split into groups depending on how many people are playing. And this year we had 8 people playing, so we just kind of mainly throughout the day just split into 2 groups of 4. We didn't have any games this year that kind of were able to play up to 8. Sometimes in the past
Yeah.
we've had like a big group game, and they've mainly been like the flip and right or roll and right
Yep.
type games where there's really an unlimited amount of people who can
Yeah.
play them.
Yep.
We didn't have any for that this year, so we broke into 2 groups, and then whoever got first got 4 points, second got 3, third got 2, and whoever got last got 1 point, and then whoever had the highest score overall in each game got an additional bonus point, and was rewarded with one of these coasters, which were provided by my best friend, and he's done that the last few years, and they're always really cool.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they're always. I think every time they've been a little bit
Yeah, a
different.
little
And they
bit
always
different.
have the name of the theme that we're doing for
Yeah,
the year.
Yeah, the first time it did that and it had the theme, I'm like, I didn't even know you told everyone the theme of this. How did he get these done?
He just guessed.
But yeah, I think every year it's just one up to the one before it. They're just awesome, thick, chunky. I don't even want to use them as a coaster because I don't want to get them dirty at all. They're just really awesome. Got a little Statue of Liberty there.
Yeah.
That's
So yeah,
really,
I like how
really
that's
cool.
a little bit of thematic touch to that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we just kind of break into groups randomly, and then also kind of just based on who kind of has the most points and stuff. And I guess you can talk about the games we chose to play.
Yeah, the games that we had here was first one was Ticket to Ride with the Poland expansion. Ticket to Ride goes all over the earth with all of their versions.
If we had all of them, we could really
do a
just
whole
have a whole
tournament of-
Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
All the different maps.
That would be interesting.
Which would be cool.
Maybe someday we'll get a few more. And
yeah, let me know.
have a
Let us know in the
tournament.
comments if you have all the Ticket to Ride maps. Have you ever kind of had like a mini tournament where you've played them all like within a short period of time? Maybe not necessarily all in one day, but maybe over a month or 2 span, played them all and see who did the best. Let us
That'd
know.
be pretty cool. I'm interested now. I want to do that. Then we had Cascadia. We had Planet, Port Royal, Notre Dame, New York Zoo, Rajas of the Ganges, Downfall of Pompeii, Copenhagen, and Urubamba Valley. which Urubamba Valley was. You got that at Gen Con. It was a gift, early birthday present.
Yep.
So we could play it beforehand, and we liked it. We thought it played pretty well, and that actually snuck into the tournament. That
It
was the
did.
last edition there, and I enjoyed it. I
I
enjoyed
could
all
play
of.
is pretty good at higher player count too,
Yeah,
which is nice.
yeah. I enjoyed. I think all these games played really well at their player counts, and they each
Mhm.
had that location that it was based on. Some were
Right.
stronger than others, but
Right.
that's it's kind of always that way.
Yeah, it's tough too. And then I will say this year, I think even more so than compared to other years, it felt like the time of each game. Like usually, I try to pair together so people
Oh,
are kind
yep.
of playing. A group of four is playing a game and the other group is playing another game, and then they swap.
Yeah, like
And I
maybe.
felt like this year the timing on them wasn't the greatest.
Yeah, right
They
away.
always have that potential, but
Yeah.
this year it really seemed like it didn't match as well as some previous years.
Yeah, I think
That's
Rushes of the
tough.
Ganges having that early on, I think that's by far going to be the longest game of
Mhm.
any of these. So, and that's luckily we had lunch and different little breaks that people could go
Right.
on as they were waiting for someone else to finish a game. And I know
Mhm.
Rushes is kind of one of those games where we were playing it and then other people were just eating food kind of thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, there were a few other instances where they weren't really ending at the same time, and there was a
Right.
little bit of waiting, but it wasn't too bad. And I feel like,
Yeah, overall it was about as good as it could be, I
yeah,
think, with the games that we had. And I feel like this is actually not necessarily all of them, but it's a good chunk of games we don't actually play all that often, which
yeah,
is another good thing. That's why some of these I like to do just random tournaments like this, because it just gets us some of these games back to the table that we haven't played in a
yeah,
while. So I felt like that was a good thing, and it was. I think they were all. So we had. So I think. So we had Blake, who hadn't played any of these. He hadn't even played Ticket to Ride before. Um, he was able to pick up, I
yeah,
think, all of them. Pretty. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
decently easy enough.
Yeah, he did pretty well, and he
Um,
was pretty competitive for
right.
most of the day. Yeah,
Yeah, and then I think Taylor, there might have been some that he hadn't played before.
yeah,
But then I'm trying to remember. There might have been some other. So they all seemed like they were good teachable games, because there's that point that you have to think
yeah,
about as well. You're thinking about the timing, because obviously I mean, it depends how many you want to get in, how many
yeah,
games. If you don't care, if you only want to get like 6 games in, then they can obviously be longer. But if you're trying to do it all in a day, we had 10 games there, so I mean that
yeah,
gets to be, um, you got to keep cooking to get that done
yeah,
in one day.
yeah,
So when you're potentially having to teach it, and that, uh, just a lot of
yeah.
things to think about.
Yeah,
And
I think it was a good mix of games. We
mhm,
had a couple like Raja's is probably the heaviest game
yeah,
there, and but then I think everything else you had a good handful of pretty light, approachable
yeah,
games, something like Planet, and then you have just a lot of those medium games that are easy to teach, but not just like oh here's just like a 5 minute game that has really nothing to
right.
it. I thought this was a pretty great balance of
Mhm.
games,
Yeah,
personally.
good mix.
Yeah.
But yeah, and let us know in the comments too, like what games would you have had in a tournament
Yeah.
for around the world that either have like a name of a place
Yeah.
or it really makes you feel like you're traveling or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a specific place, but
Yeah.
or whatever, but just something that makes you feel like you're um, somewhere else or something maybe.
Yeah.
Let us know which ones you think would be fit that criteria of hopefully being under an hour and a half
Yeah.
hour. Yeah, I think the one other thing I hadn't really thought of because it hadn't really come up all that often in our other years, but this year it did come up
Oh,
quite a
yep.
bit.
Yep.
Is I've always been generous with the ties, where if people get the same score, they'll get the full points. So if you tied for first, I don't really look at just the rule book and see who the tiebreaker is. I just give them both 4 points, and then the next person would get two, and then one, or whatever, or however. If people tied for third, they'd both get two.
Yeah. Yep.
So this year there were a lot of
There were a
games
lot of ties.
that have like a race to a certain amount,
Yeah.
which
Like,
and it's a very few amount.
Copenhagen is
Yes.
the big one there. I think that's to like 10 or 12 points, and you get them in large chunks. And so if you're scoring, you just score a few times in the game, and
Right.
that's it. So it is not uncommon to be on the same spot as a person.
Right.
Because you're either gaining like 2 or 4 points or whatever a turn, possibly. So that one.
Port
and,
Royal
and
has
Port
the same
Royal,
thing.
Yeah, Port Royal is a
Small
race.
amount of race to points, 12
points.
points.
So it's like, then you think, do I end it now or do I wait and try to go over that amount?
It changes how you can play these games because, especially in the format that I have it, you might be in second and know you have no chance of getting first, but getting the first place person to finish will for sure use second, versus potentially getting the person that's currently in third to get a couple more points and pass you. You'd rather the game end now so that you get more, because I'm not winning anyway. So
that's true.
So it changes the way that you can play some of these, and there are just a few more of those in here. Downfall of Pompeii was and wasn't that way, because in one of the games of it, we had a 3-way tie for first, and the other person had one. In that game, you're trying to get people out of Pompeii. Well, first you're placing them in there, and then you're racing them out. It's kind of two halves to the game. And the other game, there weren't any ties. I don't believe anyone was tied. So they all had different amounts, and I think it was a good spread too. So it wasn't like they were just like, one each away from each other or something. This game, we had three people that got 6 people out, and one that got 5. So the one that got 5 got 1 point, and the other 3 got 4. So that was just not something that I would have thought would happen or thought about.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Because the other game,
but it could have happened for all these games, and there were ties in these other games, but that didn't necessarily happen to that level.
Yeah. That you were in. Were you included in like every single tie?
I think I was.
So that may have definitely played a factor in, I guess, spoiler alert, you did end up walking away with the championship here.
Yes, and it was a new one. Usually we've had, I've got Pepper's original one here.
Yes. The only one that matters, the first inaugural.
The inaugural one. So screen printed is typically what we've done the first 4 years, and this year...
Or 3D printed.
3D printed, sorry. And this year we had, so my brother-in-law works for a company that I'm not exactly sure what they do, but they do something that cuts elevator metal, and there was like scraps left over, and he asked if they could cut a meeple shape and whatnot.
They were just left with this scrap.
That was exactly how it was left over, and he just picked it up and grabbed it. No, I think they cut it, and then I ended up bringing it in to get the engraving on there as well. So, kind of as the 5th annual. And actually, he got 2 of these cut. So, if we get to the 10th one, I'm guessing that's when we will go back to that metal one. But I've had some ideas, and I've thought about for a while of what the future holds for the tournament, or what other potential things that we could explore. One of them that I keep thinking is like a team one where you have like 2 players. Could maybe look to see if there's any cooperative games that would work in that style. Otherwise, could also just have, people playing in like 4-player games and just working, gaining points for their team. So maybe a combination of each.
That idea was brought up. I found that pretty interesting because initially you're like, oh, that's not going to work. But then I'm like, that could actually be pretty cool with both those aspects. I don't know if we could maybe combine those and have some cooperative games, and then maybe the other half will just be earning points for your team, like you said. I found that just a lot more interesting when I actually started to think about it. I'm like, that could actually work, and that sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, or, I mean, the only one I can think of that we have is Unmatched, but you could do potentially team games where you're facing off against each other, but I don't know if we have that many or if there's that many out there. I guess if you're still watching at this point and you know of any that sound like, that'll fit that type of criteria really well, be, reasonable length, and easy enough to teach, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, you could, too, just have, even... Because another thing that I think people have brought up, and I've thought just slightly, and I'm like, that'll never work, because so many of 2-player only games seem to be just like very skill based. So it's like people that play them more are probably going to win.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I think I don't really want to be winning all these tournaments. I've won 3 out of 5 that we've had. You've won 1, and Michaela's won 1. Makes me feel bad.
So all the trophies are on the shelf.
But yeah, and then the one thing is just doing like 1-versus-1 games and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know. I suppose if you did do it as part of a team one, though, I think that could work a little bit better. You'd just have to look at what the teams are. You couldn't just have people that have played all the games necessarily together as a team then, because then they'd probably... Not saying they would automatically win, but someone that's played...
Like,
I think there's just a lot of 2-player games that are
like
that way.
Unmatched, if it's you who's played dozens and dozens and dozens of the games... versus someone who's like, oh, what's this game? This new game here? Oh, sure, I'll try it. You're likely going to win.
Right.
But,
so, there's just those things to think about when you put something like that together. And then, along with that, I've thought of, should past champions start at negative points? Minus 1 point for everyone they previously won.
I mean, we are definitely having to consider this now. I forget what the points ended up being, if that would have made a difference.
I think it would have. I don't remember. I think it was a 2-point victory, so I think it would have changed it. But
I mean, but that also means I think we should have like a few year cooldown where if you haven't won in like 3 years,
I think maybe it'd be
so like next year. Whoever won the past 5 years. Whoever won the first tournament wouldn't actually have to take the negative point next year.
It could look back at just the past 5 years or something, maybe.
Yeah, I could see something like that.
So now that we have 5 years of history.
Yes.
But so that was that whole tournament. I thought overall it went pretty well, but there's always hiccups in that thing, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. And luckily it was Labor Day weekend, so it was, and we'd already kind of planned to play some games the next, Sunday and Monday, so it wasn't like, I don't know, that we needed to go to work the next day or something. So we had pretty late into the night, and as part of the 30-hour gaming marathon for turning 30, I think we played for probably 13, 14 hours that day, so we already had a good chunk of that.
Yeah, we were already halfway home there. But then the next day, so your best friend Taylor stayed over, and your in-laws all live nearby, so they were able to come and visit. So the next day, early morning, woke up at the break of dawn and started setting up Praga Kapitregny, which you played that with Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of those games, and you actually don't have it written down here, but...
Ultimate Railroads?
Ultimate Railroads as well.
Yep.
You two, me, and Michaela also played.
Mm-hmm.
And then Taylor ended up having to go, had a long trip, so left there. And then Zach and Carson came over, and I think you, Zach, Carson, Abby played Castles of Burgundy, the deluxe edition. Played that for a long time.
That was a long game.
Stopped for dinner partway through.
Yeah.
And then me and Michaela ended up playing some Bruno Catala games, some Nagaraja and some Orichalcum, which those are pretty fun.
Even when you were playing them
even when I was destroying her by just
breaking the rules,
breaking all the rules, breaking the law. But then we kind of grouped back up and played Bag of Chips a few times, which Michaela sat out on that because we had one more than the amount of players that it allowed. But played that, and then everyone joined up for Planet Unknown, which has just been one of those games that we've been playing so much ever since we got it at any player count.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the last that night. And then the
so
next,
it doesn't seem like a lot, but that was actually
Castles of Burgundy is like 2-3 hours game at least.
Yeah, at the 4-player count.
Yeah,
it was a little bit long.
So easily getting into the 20s of hours for this whole marathon.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next day, I think Zach was getting a little sick, which now you are currently sick, possibly from that same thing, and it kind of ran through the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they didn't show up the next day. Wasn't feeling great, but still got some games in. Got in Champions of Midgard with both of the expansions, and that was fantastic. Should have been higher in my top 60 games. I admit it.
Now he admits it.
Yeah, now I admit it. We played Murano, finally getting back to that game. Great Inca and Marcus Brand game.
That was one that I had been wanting to. So, yeah, and part of it, a lot of this was, it was a list of, I had put together a list of games that I really had wanted to play that just don't get to the table that often. A lot of, not necessarily these ones, but maybe like the Ultimate Railroads and the Praga Kaput Rigny. Not necessarily your guys' cup of tea. You're not going to suggest them. You might play them occasionally with me, but just taking advantage of this opportunity to play a couple of these games that I wouldn't otherwise easily be able to get to the table.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what this whole list is. Murano had been one I'd been wanting to get back to the table. Yeah. And I wanted to play with Michaela because I was hoping she would like it. Yeah. But
I think
she's mixed.
Okay on it. But yeah, Endeavor is another one that we played that I think is one of those games which, well, I do like it quite a bit. It is one that we don't get to the table as often as you'd like, I'm sure.
We even played with the exploits,
which
really
totally came into play.
Came into play big time.
And they should have come into play because they were all crossing over on like 3 different locations.
And we just, for some reason, did not go for those
We went for like everything else. It was crazy. It was
didn't really make much sense, but
still a good game. And then finally late at that night we played a new game that I think you'd gotten the first game that you got, or was it the last game at Gen Con?
Which one was it again?
Redwood.
Oh, that was the first game that I got.
That was the first game. Okay, I knew it was one of those two, and so we learned that one, and that one actually that added a couple hours easily to the list,
which we would not have thought.
Would not have thought, because it seems like pretty simple. You're just moving around in nature and taking some pictures of animals and foliage, and but that one took up. I don't know,
and that might have been on us.
Yeah, it might have been on us. I mean. Yeah.
It was probably 2 hours.
Yeah, at least 2 hours.
It shouldn't have taken. I don't think it should have probably taken that long, but it did.
But it's such a unique game.
It is.
Just playing it for the first time, you do really want to feel it out, and you can watch our first impressions of that and see.
And I think we got comments on that one saying that I think one was the designer. He says he can usually play a 2-player game of it in like under 30 minutes. So I think he said the 3-player count that we were playing at was actually the longest. Because in the 4-player you can play as a team, and that shortens it a little bit. So we were actually playing it like the longest one. Yeah. I think we are also people that are like kind of taking our time, kind of analysis paralysis, looking for the best things. So I think maybe with more plays we'll have a better idea of kind of how that works and shave off some time, hopefully.
Yeah, probably not going to be as efficient as the designer of the game, but definitely be faster. But yeah, I believe that is all the games. We might have played some little things here and there, maybe that we missed, but so yeah, that's another like 10 more games. So like 20 games played over these 3 days, which is a crazy amount.
It is for sure. And yeah, my initial list of games I wanted to play for Sunday and Monday was actually quite large, and initially Michaela was like, "Oh, that's it, that's all you've got," and I'm like, "You realize how long these are going to take to play? Because, looking at it, I mean, 10 more games over those 2 days is a lot more than I typically play over 2 days, maybe. But you're kind of like, if you're playing them all day, you should really get more than that in. But yeah, a lot of them just took a lot of time, and
definitely
were some that we came back to, so I had to reread rules and stuff. So probably spent a good 5 hours reading rules, maybe.
I don't know.
Over the whole thing.
Oh, over the whole thing, maybe.
Had to probably read them for Praga, Ultimate Railroad, Redwood. Maybe it wasn't quite that long.
Yeah, I don't think
3 hours,
5
maybe.
hours. Yeah, maybe 3 hours probably works, I would say.
Murano probably had to reread them a little bit, Endeavor a little bit.
Yeah, those were definitely the longer of the games. So if we had swapped that and those were the tournament games, I don't think anyone would have made it through the day.
No, not at all. But yeah, it was a good weekend. I was glad to get a lot of those played again, and it just maybe be like, oh, my top 60. Maybe some of these should have made it in.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think I enjoyed every single game that we played.
Nice.
Then I saw Praga Kvut, and I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, oh, I didn't play that one.
I've told him he's got to play that one so that we can we can film a first impression on that one. I think that one's still waiting for that. So I could do it by myself, but I'd much rather see Pepper's thoughts, because then you might get some mixed thoughts, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Unless
he loves it.
I absolutely love it.
But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. Do we have any content on any of these other ones? I don't remember.
Oh, there's so many. I'm sure we probably have very little content on all of these now that I'm actually looking at it. We have Downfall of Pompeii content. Go check it out. It's some of the most viewed videos. The rules recipe for that. I don't know why.
If you need to see how to play the game, that's the one to look up.
That is the one. But yeah, let us know below what theme we should do for the next tournament. If we should go for something team based, and if we do that, should we also have an actual theme to that as well? That might be a little too much, but I think some of the themes that were thrown around were animals, trying to get Wingspan in there. Then space was also talked about, because we've definitely gotten a lot more
out of this world.
So around the world and then out of this world. So who knows? Maybe that'll be the 10. So we can have the 5 and the 10 dealing
kind of go together.
The world, yeah. But yeah, food I think was mentioned as well. I don't know how many of those
food
we have.
/ farming maybe you could do.
Yeah.
Let us know if there's other themes that you see a lot of, or if we should go back to cards again or dice. Those are fun as well. But otherwise, we thank you for watching along with us here this long. If you've made it, hit the subscribe, hit the like, do all those good things. It's all free, I believe. But otherwise, we hope to see you on the next one. And as always, don't forget to
keep on nibbling
on our content.